All right, we are live. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and share this. Welcome to Abnormal Alabama. And no, I'm not on my own tonight. Dr. Kelsey is here. He's just getting himself set up at his outdoor fireside, because we're going to be doing camping horror stories tonight. So he is here. I'm not alone. He should be back in a little bit. And until then, we are going to go ahead and do a spirit box session here with a haunted doll. So let me go ahead and share as we're waiting on some more people to come on. I'm going to go ahead and share this link, because if I do not, then there'll be some people missing out who'll get ticked at me. So let me go ahead and share this. It's camping season, as you see the name of our episode there. Again, for those of you tuning in just now, Dr. Kelsey is here. He's just getting set up outside at his campfire side, so we can get into the camping story. So he should be back in just a few minutes. Don't run away, because he is here. And I see him getting set up now. So I was going to go ahead and share this link to make sure everybody comes and joins us that we want to come join us. And I'm about to do a spirit box session with the doll. So the doll I have tonight is a very lovely composition doll. And she comes from my friend Cherie Shun, and who's in Georgia, who has about 600 or more dolls in her house. So she's outnumbered me on haunted dolls. And so we're going to see if this lovely lady will come and speak to us. I'm going to go ahead and get this shared here now that we're live. And we will go ahead with the spirit box session. So, and I see Dr. Kelsey's getting nice and set up there at his campfire site, so he'll be joining us soon, so we can tell the camping horror stories. Yeah, here we are, getting into late spring, getting closer to summer. Some of us don't know what spring is. Some of us who live in places like Alabama. Alabama itself is abnormal. That's why we call this abnormal Alabama. I can tell you, at the least, the weather is ridiculous. All right, so we've about got this shared here, and I'm about to bring on Sally to do the spirit box session. And we thank y'all for joining us tonight. I hope we have some good campfire story or camping horror stories, which will probably include campfire stories as well. And it's going to be really cool that Dr. Kelsey's going to be right by his fireplace outside. All right, here we go. Let us get down to business with the haunted doll. Here we go. Everybody say hello to haunted doll Sally. Straight from Georgia. Now, she has these partially opened eyes here. I don't think those are real teeth in there, although some of these old compo dolls from the 20s and 30s, some of them had real teeth. No, these are not real. This one might be from the 40s, but it is a compo doll. I could feel the crier box inside it in the back, but it doesn't work anymore. She has the compo feet and arms that are that weird kind of board material that they say is made out of some kind of paper and something else. It's not wood. It feels like wood, although it might be. Yeah, I think there is some wood there. But and her head is the same. But she's in beautiful condition for her age. Just some cracks here and there. Now, Cherie Shun, she takes good care of her dolls. So much so that she puts their name bracelets on. As you can see, Sally has her name bracelet. Because Cherie has so many dolls like I do, it helps to identify them to have those bracelets on. So I love that she does that, and I need to do something like that. Being a guy, I don't know much about beading or anything like that. So, but that is cute. All right. So as usual, we have the cat ball that hopefully will light up. Now we saw this light up before we went live, so I think Sally was letting me know she was here. That's what that looks like. And we have the K2, the REM pod skull. And we have the antique hotel bell, which itself might be haunted, but I've not heard it ring by itself. But I'm hoping some of these playful spirits will ring that bell. And as usual, we're going to use, I left her back here. We're going to use my Spirit Box app that works so well, the Necrophonic. And I've been kind of successful with this thing. The Necrophonic. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Are you ready, Sally? I hope you are. I love that name, Sally. It makes me think of the Sally House in Kansas, which I've not been to yet, but I'd like to, just to see for myself what's actually there. Some say a ghost, some say a demon. But my little Sally is definitely a nice spirit. She doesn't bother anybody. She's very quiet. And we're going to see if she'd like to talk to us. So, Sally, this thing's warmed up. Sally, we'd love for you to play with any of these toys before I start the spirit box. Feel free to touch any of these. You can light that up. All you have to do is tap it. You can touch this or just come near this metal rod beside this silly skull and make his eyes light up real funny. Or just tap that bell over there if you want to and let me know you're here. But in the meantime, if you come close to this device I'll be holding and speak, I should be able to hear you. Hey. Somebody's already said hey. Sally, my name's Kevin, as you already know. Sally, are you here? Yeah, did y'all hear that? She said, yeah. Hello, Sally. Hi, I hear you. How are you doing, Sally? I can barely hear you. If you come closer, I hear some sentences there. Sally, tell everybody how old you are. Are you 6 years old? Are you 7 years old? Are you 8 years old? Sally, where are you from? Oh, there's that dude guy. He's a dude. Sally, it looks like Mr. Kelsey's lighting up his fire pit outside.
Not having too much success.
Do you like to camp outside, Sally? Oh, I heard you. Hey, Sally. Sally, what's your last name? Hey, sweetheart, I hear you. Did this doll belong to you? How old is your doll? Do you have a name? Do you have a name for your doll?
I got it.
Minor? Sally, were you sick before you became a spirit? Ah, I heard loud and clear that time. Did you say pox? Did you have smallpox? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
I'm sorry you were sick. Do you feel better now? Oh, was that a hiccup? Sound like a little girl hiccuping. Now, that voice, is somebody crying or somebody trying to sing? Sounds like wailing. Who is that wailing, Sally? Sally, what was your home like? Did you live in a big house? Yeah. Was it in Georgia? Empty. Is it empty now? Are there any other spirits with your doll? So I hear a lot of voices. I'd sure love to see you light up this cat ball or this funny head, this skull. Make his eyes glow. Or ring that bell if you want to. Just tap it. That sounds like somebody trying to sing. and failing miserably. I shouldn't be insulting. I apologize to whoever that is. Sally, are your mommy and daddy still alive? No. Are they with you now? Ball. I heard you say ball. Do you want to light up that ball at your feet? At your doll's feet? Just tap it and it'll glow. If you need any energy, you can use either of these devices in my hands to get some electricity. I should ask, Sally, does this dress your doll is wearing, does that belong to you? No, because it looks like a really old dress there. Probably from the 40s or 50s, maybe older. Just gonna look at your doll's eyes. Those eyelids don't open all the way, and I don't want to break them trying to open them. She has those sleepy eyes. Do you like to sleep, Sally? Do you like to play? What games do you like to play? Sally, is there anything you want to tell us? Do you like the bracelet that Shuri made for you with your name? Bad. Are you making a piece? Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, Sally? Uh-oh, looks like Dr. Graham disappeared from his campfire. He might become a campfire tale. A camping horror story. Oh, there he comes. Yeah. We're about to be done here in a minute. We're going to tell some stories about camping. Do you like camping, Sally? If you like camping, why don't you light up one of these toys here? Are you happy where you are, Sally? Sounds like a little bit of a laugh there. Well, you are a precious little girl, Sally. Where did you come from? Was it Georgia or? Nah. Tell me where you came from. Hello to Caitlin Simonelli, who joined us in the chats there. Anything you want to tell the people watching us, Sally? Now's the time to say it. To end in a minute so we can start with the campfire stuff. Or the camping stuff. I used to love camping by the lake at the campgrounds. I just cast a line out, and at night when I went to bed, I'd come back the next morning, there would always be a big catfish on the line. Do you like family? You? Okay. Well, thank you for that laugh, sweetheart. We're going to go ahead and stop. So just last chance. Any last thing you want to say? Go ahead and say it. Yeah. You are so cute. I'm going to leave these toys out here in case you want to play with them while we're talking. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and turn this spirit box off. So if there are any spirits who don't belong here, you need to go back to where you came from. And all spirits here, please back away, move back. And I'm going to count down from 5, and I'm going to turn off this. I'm going to close this door. I'm going to turn this off. So go ahead and back away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Bye. There we go. Thank you, little Sally. She is just an adorable doll. All right. So let me put the camera back up here. All righty. Let's see. Is Mr. Kelsey ready to be added? Oh, I see him with a drum over there. We're about to have a powwow.
Got to get rid of the evil spirits.
Oh, he's getting rid of the evil spirits.
And the drumming goes way back in history to getting your heartbeat rhythm with nature, with the earth, to get in harmony.
Yeah. They do that a lot at the powwows I've been to.
You like powwows? Do you like drumming?
Yeah, I like the way they do it over there, and they do the Native American singing.
Well, this is actually, I built this fire pit a long time ago, And then Linda got ill to where we never used it. And this is the first time I've actually used it. In fact, I added more brick around it today. Can you see it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that looks good.
So it's doing its thing.
All right.
And I guess it's legal to have a fire pit. Nobody told me I couldn't.
Yeah, we got a fire pit here. As long as it's contained, I think it's
Yep.
okay.
Anyway, you see the containing wall all the way around it.
Well,
As
you know
long as
what?
it, huh?
I was gonna say, you know what? Campfires put me in the mood for. Yeah, to some people it means summer.
Yeah.
But you know what it's getting me already in the mood for, even though we're still 5 months away.
Yeah.
It's getting me
Halloween.
in the mood for this.
There you go. You look pretty good with that. You look pretty good with that on.
I'm already ready for Halloween.
Kind of muffles your voice, but other than that,
Yeah. That's the thing with that mask. It's thick, so
well, and another thing about the fire and the smoke is it gets rid of the mosquitoes and whatnot.
yeah.
So anyway, this is my first opportunity to have lit this thing,
Ah,
and there goes somebody on a motorcycle.
on a motorcycle.
I've done a lot of work out here over the past 3 or 4 years. I couldn't
Put on
take
my
care of this
outdoor
properly.
hat.
Huh?
Put on me an outdoor hat, even though I'm inside.
There you go. Just imagine that you're sitting around the campfire, and we're going to
Yeah.
tell these stories.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sit out here for a little while, and then I'll go back into my desk after a while.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't, I've got electricity out here, but I didn't bring anything to plug in my phone or anything. So,
Uh-oh.
which is fine. I just
Yeah.
thought since we're doing camping horror stories tonight,
Yeah.
do we have any watchers out there?
Yeah, we got several people watching right now, so
All right. Well, the
like,
campfire's here, and Kevin's going to entertain us with some horrific. I don't know. Do you have any Bigfoot stories from camping?
it might be. I haven't looked through all of them to see what's here. I found uh, some true, deeply disturbing camping and hiking trips gone wrong. I
Deeply
got this
disturbing.
here.
I like that.
I have this other collection called Strange Things in the Woods, a collection of terrifying tales.
And here I sit.
And here you see it.
The
And there
woods
probably
are
is a Bigfoot story. Well, now, wait, I did see some. There were a couple of Bigfoot or humanoid type things in some of
up.
these stories. So, yeah, there are. They're in here. I remember seeing, now that you mentioned, I remember seeing yesterday.
Well, you should have too, because we're in Alabama, and there's a lot of them out there right now. Some escaped convict stories.
Oh, yeah, like the couple White and White Incorporated.
And they're not. And interestingly enough, they were not the only ones. We've had several escapees lately.
Yeah. It's
They
kind of
just made
crazy.
the news internationally. The way that went down, that woman lost her mind. That's all I can say.
Yeah, she did.
I mean, she was set up for life, retire and pension and all the above, and she just, boy,
Yeah.
that's the same. That's a horrifying story and a true story.
Oh, here's this other collection I've got. It's called Creepy Camping Encounters That Will Put You Off the Great Outdoors.
Put you off the great outdoors.
Put you off the great outdoors. And
Do you like to go camping, Kevin?
we used to do it every summer. We'd go to Wind Creek Campground, and then we'd go to Tanny Hill and camp. And
well, I've camped all over. I've literally camped from London, Ontario, to Baja, Mexico. And primitive camping. Go ahead.
I just said, oh.
So I just ordered and received in the last couple of weeks a new teepee tent, and they're nice. So anyway, why don't we let Kevin get into entertaining us and scaring us as I sit out here near the woods,
Yeah.
and as the darkness looms closer and closer, the sun sets to the west, and that's when things get really frightening.
Yeah, it does. All right, here's one about the crying girl. These are supposedly true stories. So this person tells the story. His name is Keith, and he tells the story like this. When I was younger, probably like 10 or 11 years old, I went camping with my family. I'll just get right into it. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning, and I could not really sleep. The tent that me and my brother were in was really hot and very uncomfortable. Anyway, while I was trying to go to bed, I heard a very faint whimper. I tried to ignore it because I figured I was just tired. Our campsite was along a road with many other camps nearby. The whimper started to get louder and then turned into crying, outright crying. Then I heard footsteps outside of our tent, and a girl was crying. Now, let me tell you, it did not go faint. It got louder and louder. It remained in the same spot the entire time. That's so important because it indicates that she was looking at our tent site and she was crying. It gets worse. Then it turned into a full-on scream for a few seconds, and then suddenly it cuts out. When she started screaming, my brother woke up. We both looked at each other and just get all the pillows and all our stuff and stuff our heads under them, trying to hide ourselves. I couldn't sleep all that night. I'm just glad we left the next morning. So I tell you what's creepy with that story is that it could either way, it's scary. Either you've got a ghostly girl out there crying, a weeping woman ghost, or if that's a real person, then that must have been some kind of crazy nut. So either way, that's kind of a scary thing. Any kind of crying, screaming girl like that just standing outside your tent, that's got to be terrifying.
It's not going to make you feel like you're going to rest too well.
No. And if it was just somebody needing help, they would say, help, I'm hurt, or help, somebody's after me. No, this girl was crying and then screaming. All right. Here's another one about the shaking. From Yuko. Well, there's your name. Yuko tells about the shaking. This happened to an acquaintance of mine and his son. This took place back in the early 90s. He had taken his young son for a father and son type hike out of Skagway. I'm not sure where that is. If any of you are familiar with Skag Patch, there is quite a network of trails above town at Lower Dewey Lakes. Unfortunately, the storyteller doesn't tell what state he's talking about here. So it's evening, dinner is done, the tent is up, and it's bedtime. Sometime later, around midnight, he's awoken up by the tent, shaking violently, and then silence. Then again, shaking violently, and then again, silence. Keep in mind it's late August and pitch black outside. I mean, as pitch black as you can get under the heavy coastal rainforest with no moon. This shaking kept up for over an hour. He had no idea what it was or who, if it was a who. He went out with his headlamp and yelled, but he heard nothing. He went back in the tent, and then the shaking started up again. He could hear footsteps too whenever it happened. He was pretty alarmed, and by the next morning, still shaken up, as you could imagine, he reported to the troopers, and the only thing they could come up with was someone with a night vision setup was messing around or something else. Maybe it was Bigfoot shaking the tent. Bum, 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 bum. All right, I got more stories here. Here's one about the middle of the woods from Kaufman, whoever Kaufman is. This happened to me when I was little. I went camping with my older brother and my mom. I was about 7 or 8, and I went to bed around 10 o'clock in a sleeping bag inside my tent with both my mom and brother. Sometime during the night, I don't know what time, I woke up somewhere in the middle of the woods, still in my sleeping bag, zipped all the way up. I had no idea where I was or where my tent was. I screamed for my mom, and I heard her calling back for me in panic, but she was easily at least 100 yards away or more. To this day, I have no idea how I ended up in the middle of the woods, still inside my sleeping bag. It gives me the chills. Ooh, sounds like somebody dragged him out of the woods while he was asleep or something. Now, that would be my nightmare, would be falling asleep in the tent and something or somebody comes in and drags me off into the night. All right, here's one about the hanging man. Ooh, this happened in Appalachia country. Hiking the Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania for about a week in 2006, my brother and I came across a young man who had hung himself. We sprinted up to the bluff where he was strung up, and I wrapped my arms around his waist to take weight off his neck while my brother cut him down with his Leatherman. He had thrown the rope up over a tall branch and lashed it off with a clove hitch at the trunk, just like you would hang a bear bag with. Must have climbed the branches and dropped once laced in. We probably shouldn't have even tried. He was dead for some time before we happened across him. Fortunately, no critters had come to tear him apart before we found him. It would have only gotten grislier from there. We called 911 and ended our trip pretty damn quick. I don't know why we tried. It was very obvious he had been dead for some time. I don't know how long. He was very cold and smelled pretty bad. Intuition to help someone and adrenaline that clouds your judgment, I guess, is what made us do it. It was kind of a messed up day, so I don't really remember my thought process. That's even worse, is being out camping and finding a dead body in your camping area. Oh, here's a nice, little bit longer one called Music in the Night. A couple of years ago, my brother bought a large piece of land out in the middle of nowhere, about 30 miles or so from cell phone reception. And there's no light pollution, no paved roads, and not a lot of people around. Shortly after he bought the place, two of my brothers, the landowner and another man, me and our family spent a weekend camping on the land and doing our best to clean it up. People had used it as a dump. There were many downed trees and etc. on the property. On the second night we camped there, I woke up in the middle of the night to take a leak. As I was walking to the bushes in the dark, I realized that I could faintly hear music. This did not strike me as odd because I knew my brother had a radio in his camper. I finished up and went back to sleep with no further thought on the matter. The next morning at breakfast, I mentioned the radio and music. Several other people recalled waking in the night and hearing music, but no two people heard the same music. Finally, the brother who brought the radio woke up, and I asked him about the music, and he seemed a bit freaked out. He had woken up sometime during the night and went outside to smoke, and he heard music as well and had assumed it was someone else. I should mention that he was the only one with a generator and a radio. It was not his radio we heard, and it was not anyone else's either. I've been back several times, but I'm a bit freaked out by that place at night. I have fun while I'm there, but I'm almost always armed, and I don't sleep in a tent anymore. I sleep in my SUV with the back doors locked. It may seem kind of dumb, but realizing that everyone heard different music, there are no people, no functional radios, and no electricity is quite creepy. Yes, I should say so. Next, we have a story about the light by R. Bassel. We were in a riverside cabin one night in northern Michigan. I had just stretched out when a huge crack erupted from the woods. Both of us thought it was a branch or old tree that had fallen over. After he turned off the living room light, we noticed that the light coming from the windows was abnormally strong. This sent our nerves to a new high. The light seemed to pulse several times and got so bright at one point you could have read a book by it. It couldn't have been a car, as we were almost a mile off the road on a dirt trail. Plus, the light came in from all the windows equally. Every so often, we would hear a strange humming noise that penetrated that cabin. This lasted almost half an hour. We talked about just running out to the car and leaving, but neither of us wanted to go outside. After the light went out, we sat on the couch, occasionally putting forth theories on what it could have been. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, there was another loud crack. We worried that the light might come back, but nothing else happened. All right, next we have a story from Devon called Blue Spectre. My friend and I were walking just outside of the circle of cabins where we were camping. It was a bright night with all the stars shining and the moon was well lit. There was a campfire going, and in one of the big cabins, there was a party going on with music and so on. We were walking, and we both got a really weird feeling as if we were being watched. We both turned toward the sea and saw a blue figure, very tall, about 7 feet, walking through the trees. It made no sound at all. It was a bright blue and glowing figure walking through the forest. It was emitting a shimmery aura, and my friend and I both became very frightened. We shouted at whatever that thing was, and we were asking it what it was, but we got no reply. Of course, we really didn't expect one. We stared as it walked away and out of our vision, and we did not dare follow it. We then ran back to the group of people at the campfire, screaming and describing what we saw. Another friend of mine claimed he was watching it from a distance not far from where we were, and he was just as frightened as I was. Ooh, looks like a good ghostly visit to your camp. Bye. All right, here's the next one. It's called Footsteps Upstairs by Joe the Internet. Not something I experienced, but my sister and husband experienced this story. My family used to have a cabin on a lake in the North Woods. It's a lake with no public access. On the other side is or was an old girls' camp, like a Girl Scout camp, that the state was letting fall apart. It had a large two-story main house that was mostly intact at the time. My sister and her husband decided to check out the camp one day. They canoed over and started to walk around. They went into the main house first. They walked around for a bit, and then they heard heavy footsteps upstairs. These footsteps turned into something running heavily toward the stairs. My sister and her husband booked it out of the house, but they could hear the steps coming down the stairs and on the main level as they ran out. They opted to run around the house instead of heading back to the shore. They never saw who it was, but they heard them enter back into the house, and then they heard them storm back outside again. They went into the woods this time and heard someone running in the woods after them. So they took the long way around the lake back to the cabin. My dad and I had to go back later that day to get the canoe, but we never heard or saw anything. All right, here's a story by someone going by the screen name Smoker. It's called Who Followed Us? This happened in 1981 or 1982, not sure anymore. I had made friends with a fellow I worked with and offered to take him digging for frogs. He was from the city and had never spent any time in the woods at night. The farm I had permission to do it on was only about a mile from my place. My friend showed up at 10:30 or so, and I gave him a gig and a flashlight. We decided to walk to the other farm. We didn't get far before we both heard something walking in the dark to the side of us. I've been in the woods all my life, and I've had plenty of deer follow me, but I was not going to tell him that. It was clear he was getting spooked. We climbed the fence and continued on. Then we heard something else climb the fence behind us. Well, I know deer don't climb fences. I tried looking around with a flashlight, but he wanted none of it. We could see the house lights of the place we were going to. He ran off on me and beat on the guy's door until they let him in. By the time I got there, Mr. Barber, the landowner, and his wife were out on the porch and wanted to know what was going on. Mr. Barber and I went back and had a look around but found nothing. My friend refused to walk back, and Mr. Barber gave us a ride back to my place. We never did find out what or who it was that was following us, although Mr. Barber alluded to some reports of a Sasquatch in the area that had been seen by people passing by the property. My friend decided that frogging was not for him. He also refused to go on several fishing trips I had invited him to. I can't say I was too comfortable with what happened, but I have not let it stop me from going frogging. There's your Sasquatch story there, Kelsey. All right, and here's the final one on this collection. It's called The Gator by Biggs 180. A few years ago, I was camping in the Everglades in Florida with a few friends. We all had gone into our separate tents and were starting to fall asleep. The area was pretty noisy with bugs, crickets, and birds. And I heard this very low vibration sounding almost like a low roar. It was powerful enough to vibrate in my chest. Suddenly, everything in the forest just went silent. No bugs, no birds, nothing. About 30 seconds later, my phone vibrates, and it's my friend in the other tent texting me, asking if I had heard the same thing. The four of us kept texting each other, wondering what it was. About 10 minutes later, all the animals slowly started making noise again. I slept that night with my machete at arm's reach. A lot of people are saying it might have been a gator. We were in an elevated area that was far from any streams or ponds. It's possible there might have been a pond with a gator that we missed, but the very big ones tend to hang out in lakes. All right. I've seen a gator before, but I've not been camping near one before. Oh, Playful Rain has joined us, Kelsey. She says the drumming is putting me in a trance.
Who said that?
Playful Rain.
Oh, I'm sorry. She don't like it.
She didn't say that. She just said the drumming is putting me in a trance. Oh, and she says, love the hat, Kevin. No, she says, I like the drumming.
Oh, she did like it. Okay.
She does like it. So, yeah, that kind of added a bit of a mood to the storytelling. And should I continue with another story?
Keep on.
Okay. I've got
I'm
another
gonna
one.
wait when it gets dark a little bit. I'm gonna go inside.
Okay.
Just enjoying this for a little bit.
Yeah, I like having that crackling campfire there
Sounds good, don't it?
in our show here. All
I thought
right.
it would be apropos.
All right, let's get to the next story. This one's called The Abandoned House, and this took place in North Carolina, a place I've not been to yet, but I want to go to. This happened in the mountains of North Carolina. My husband at the time was in the military, and we were stationed at Camp Lewan. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Lejeune or Lewan. I'll say Lejeune, Camp Lejeune, one weekend. We and another family or another military couple decided to go camping in the rugged Appalachian Mountains on the other side of the state. After setting up camp, we decided to hike around for a bit in the hilly, mountainous terrain. Deep in the woods in a little hollow, imagine our surprise when we chanced upon an abandoned Victorian house. It was almost overgrown with kudzu vines, but we still managed to find a way inside and decided to explore. Once in, we were amazed at the surprisingly good condition of the inside of the house. Upon further inspection, we found the house to be fully furnished and also found clothing and even old children's toys. It was more than a little creepy, and we all got the feeling we should not be there. It was as if the people who lived there had just stepped out and would return any moment. Our husbands were just as mystified as we girls were, although they did not seem as scared. My husband, Richard, even began checking the walls for any hidden passages, thinking perhaps the family had gone into hiding for some reason and then perished, trapped inside the walls. I can't express how much the house still looked lived in. There was clothing laid out on the still-made beds and plates and silverware set out on the dinner table. Everything was covered with a somewhat heavy layer of dust, however, so it was obvious the place had not been lived in for decades. This was in the early 1960s, although the musty calendar on the kitchen wall was from 1909. Was it even possible that no one had entered this dwelling in over 50 years? The longer we spent in the house, the more scared my female friend and I became, eventually becoming almost hysterical. Eventually, after much pleading, our husbands decided we should leave, although they would have been happier to stay and explore the house more. After we left and the shivers wore off, all we could discuss on the drive back home was how isolated the house was. It was literally in the middle of the woods, and the nearest paved highway was miles away. A few weeks later, our husbands planned a trip back alone to continue exploring. My friend and I were fine with that. Although I was curious about the house, I had no desire to visit again after the sense of fright that had enveloped me there. However, when the guys came back home the Sunday evening after their planned trip, the story became even stranger. Although they were sure of the exact location, they had been unable to find the house and had spent the entire weekend wandering the woods. Even though they remembered and recognized natural landmarks, no house could be found. They even stopped at a roadside general store a dozen or so miles from where the house had been, and when they inquired about the house, the proprietor emphatically denied that any such house existed. When my husband and his friend persisted, the man at the general store suddenly became angry and told them to leave, adding that if they knew what was good for them, they should forget the house and never come back. They ignored the warning and went back on two other occasions, but could never find the house again. And like the owner of the general store, any of the locals whom they chanced upon and asked about the place refused to talk about or even acknowledge it. I know what we saw, and I know that it was real, but not being able to find it again and the local people not wanting to talk about it only adds to the mystery. Did we chance upon the site of some unspeakable tragedy? I may never know the answer, but I will always wonder about the abandoned house deep in the woods. Now, I like that story. You've heard of a haunted house, but what if the house itself is the ghost? That's a neat twist. Oh, we're at the top of the hour. Should we plug some books real quick?
Absolutely. And tell them about June the 4th and 5th.
Okay. Let's see. I want to run the.
I'm going to have some wishing machines there.
Yeah, I was just about to turn on this. There we go. This wishing machine scroll on the bottom, www.wishdoctor.com. And so be sure to check that out. Here's a couple of pictures of it. Oh, whoops, that's the wrong thing. Let's see here. Let me get the big picture here. There's a picture of his wishing machines. And there's another one in here, I think. Oh, he used to be there. Okay. And also, let's throw up a book here. Dating the Dead and Spectrophilia at datingthedead.com. This is chock full of stories of the strangest sex, love, and marriages you've ever heard of in the abnormal world.
The kind of Kevin would get involved in. Relationships with dolls.
Okay. Well, make sure to check that out. And then I've got my books. And there's that other picture there, the wishing machine. And then I got my books at myhauntedolls.com. Myhauntedolls.com. You'll find books I've written about supernatural things. Got some nonfiction books. Stories about my haunted dolls and items in my collection. There's one about the scarier items in my collection. my haunted collection, The Dark Side. I've got supernatural novels that are fiction but based on real hauntings, such as Crimson, the Blood Painting, based on a painting that I have in my home here that uh, came from Salem, Massachusetts. And got some other items out there. Got coffee mugs and hats and things like that out there. So be sure to check that out. And we will be going. Ooh, my throat's catching. Let me take a swig here. We'll be going to Alabama Comic Con, the Alabama Comic Convention, on June the 4th and 5th, Saturday, Sunday, June 4th, June 5th, at the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center, BJCC, in downtown Birmingham. We're going to be there that Saturday and Sunday. I will have our books, and I forgot to flash my newest book up there as I was hawking my books there. Dark Awakening and Other Tales for a Midnight Hour. If you like the stories we're telling tonight, you'll love this one. This one. There, point the right way. This is a collection of my original horror stories. So be sure to check that out. And I'll have copies of that and my other books. And Kelsey will have his books and Wishing Machine. And we'll have some creepy dolls on display, some actual haunted dolls.
Creepy dolls.
You can get a selfie. You can buy a book and buy some souvenirs. I'm sure there'll be some T-shirts and stuff there. I'll have some of my caps there, my baseball hats with myhauntedDolls.com on it, and some photos and books. Buy our books.
Do you see anything in the fire? Do you see any spirits in the fire?
I don't see any yet. I see a lot of leaping flames, some dancing flames. Come out and see us at the Alabama Comic Convention on June 4th and 5th. We'll have a table set up. And so that is that. We are 8 o'clock now, so we got time for more stories. For the campfire, camping stories, camping horror stories. Let's see. We got one here. Stories. Here's one about a serial killer. This is a camping story all the way from Australia. Down under, mate. Bushwalking in NSW, Australia, me and my friend came across this weird platform-looking thing made out of rocks. Later that year, the cops arrested some bloke on suspicion of the murders of a series of backpackers. That what? They arrested some bloke on suspicion of the murders of a series of backpackers who had gone missing over the course of a few years. And at the sites of several of the murders slightly off in the bush were these altars. Current Affairs show runs footage of one, and yeah, it's that same like that thing we found. The altars were typically no more than 300 yards from the victims' shallow graves. The guy who was arrested and subsequently convicted for the murders is Ivan Milat, Australia's worst serial killer. The cops are pretty sure that at least one other person was involved in the murders than the one who's now in jail for the crime. They just could not prove it. Now, I don't know. That might be the ultimate terrifying camper story there, to be coming camping and come across the stomping grounds of a serial killer. Oh, boy. All right. Here's one about a man in a blue jacket. Let's see what this is about. Over the years, when I've told this story, many people have not believed me, but it's true as the sky is blue. Me and my brother were hiking out in our new backwoods. We had just moved into a new house, and we stumbled upon a small open grass field. In the center of it, there was a person with a blue jacket crouched over. We thought it was a friend of ours that we had recently met, so I ran out to meet them. I did not have my glasses on, but I got pretty close enough to see that it was a grown man leaned over the carcass of a deer, stabbing it with an unsharpened stick. He looked up and saw me. I was pretty freaked out, so I turned around and yelled at my brother to run, and so we started to sprint as fast as we could to get back home. That's a little bit too close to home for me. Okay, here's another one. This one looks like it was in Canada. So let's go up to Canada and the camping story there. Last year, I was with a buddy of mine, and we were going to do the Hart Creek Scramble in Alberta, but due to some health conditions he has, it was going to be too strenuous to complete, and we figured we'd make it an easy day and just do the simple trail. Now, we're both climbers and have been to Hart Creek for rock climbing in the past and had a great time, so it wasn't a surprise to see the sporadic climbers on the mountainside as we went. Hart Creek is also pretty popular and easy for people who just want to go for a nice walk, maybe have a picnic or even camp out. Anyway, so we walked in, enjoying the day, watching the climbers on our way by. We saw a couple even doing some multi-pitch climbing, which means basically leapfrogging up the route. We settled in for lunch about a half hour later and left a couple hours after that. On our way back, I remember seeing a climbing shoe in the creek and thinking, oh, someone must have lost this. I picked it up when my buddy got my attention and I looked further down the tree. Both climbers, a young man and his partner, were both lying in the creek bed, rope and harnesses still attached, and dead. It was very surreal. We had seen these people climbing not 2 hours before, making their calls and having a good time. The first reaction I had was that I remembered that there was a family right behind us, a husband and wife with a young daughter who were playing in the creek on the way down. We ran back and stopped them and explained as quietly as we could what was ahead. And before we knew it, looky-loos had come by. It turned out that the husband was an off-duty RCMP officer, and so he took control of the situation. I learned later we weren't the first on the scene and that the authorities had been called. It was a very quiet ride back into town that day. Man, that's kind of sad.
Are you crying?
I'm not, but that's kind of scary and sad. You see?
I don't think you've got it in you to cry. I don't think you're that sensitive. Yeah, that's
so
what I
you
thought.
see these rock climbers just having a ball as you're on the way up, and then 2 hours later you come back down, they've fallen and they're dead. I mean, that's just kind of
No,
freaky.
the reason you're upset is because your brother is a rock climber.
Hey, Kevin.
Who's that? Oh, is that Catherine?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, Catherine's there. Hello.
You doing okay this evening?
Yeah. Yes, I am. How about y'all?
Doing good. Just watching this fire.
Yeah. I like the smell of fire too, the wood burning.
I do too.
That's a lot better than Catherine's sports.
Ha 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 ha.
Of course, sometimes it plays havoc with my sinuses, but still I enjoy it. All right.
Well, I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to going doing some camping. Even though this has been fun tonight.
Yeah.
So I put up, huh?
We've not lit my fire pit out here yet. We need to.
Well, like I said, this was built several years ago. Never got completed. I completed it today and never used it. So I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there's a tripod in the middle so you can hang a pot, you know?
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah. And then I I put a lot of solar lights in the backyard here. I don't know if you can't see those. That's why I wanted to wait in the dark to see my solar lights light up.
Ah, looks like Playful Rain just rejoined us. She said, "Hey everyone, sorry I left for a quick golf ride. LOL." Huh? A golf
LOL.
ride?
Woo.
That must be nice. All right. How about another story? Oh, here's one I haven't done yet. A camping type story in the winter time. Here we go. This one's called Footprints in the Snow.
Not footprints in the sand?
Nope, footprints in the snow.
Well, I'm going to start letting the fire slowly go out here, but go ahead and tell your story.
Okay. The weirdest thing that I ever saw in the woods happened when I was just a boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old.
That reminds me of a song.
It
When I
had
was a little bitty baby, my mama used to rock me in the cradle.
It had
Sorry.
snowed. It had snowed heavily the night before, so I was enjoying a day off from school because it had been canceled due to winter. I was walking around in the early morning snow-covered silence. I was
Silent.
quite a ways back in the woods, maybe a mile or so, when I happened upon some footprints. They were human footprints, but smaller than my feet, so I assumed they belonged to a child of maybe 5 or 6 years old. And to top it off, whoever had left the prints in the snow had been barefoot. It was about 34 degrees and much too cold for anyone, let alone a child, to be wandering barefoot in the snow, no less. I noticed right away that there were no footprints, bare or otherwise, leading up to where the tiny footprints began. Well, I followed the prints for a few hundred yards, where they abruptly ended in a small clearing. I looked all around, even up in the trees, but could find no trace of the small child who had made the prints. I followed them back again to where they began, still just as mystified as ever. Still puzzled, I made my way over to my friend's house and told him about what I had seen. He got dressed for the weather, and we both trekked back out into the woods. When we arrived, the footprints were still visible, but just barely. The freshly falling snow was filling them in. We scoured the entire area for maybe a square mile, but never found more footprints or any evidence of the child who had made the ones we both observed. To this day, I still cannot find any rational explanation. That's my story of the weirdest thing I've ever encountered in the woods, and I'm glad I have a witness who will back it up.
And I'm supposed to believe it, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to believe it. Oh, I like this one. Oh, the watcher at the campsite. Ooh. Okay, so I work in the outdoor field and lead trips regularly. I once led a trip to the top of Mount Stringer in North Carolina. It's a tough climb to get to the top about 6 miles from the nearest road. I was leading a group of 8 middle school kids and had one co-instructor. We were camping out on top of the mountain, and it was a beautiful night with a full moon. The kids and the other co-instructor went to bed in their tents. I chose to spend the night in a hammock that night. I was really into a book I was reading, so I stayed up and read until about 10:30 p.m. I turned my headlamp off to settle in for the night. Everything around me was rather bright from the moon, and from the position I was in, I could see down the trail we had hiked to get to the top. I lay there enjoying the scenery and noticed something moving on the trail. Bears are common in the area, so I perked up. As it got closer, I could tell it was a person. We were in the middle of nowhere, and there was someone hiking up the trail with no headlamp or any gear. I was just frozen watching this person move closer to our camp. They arrived at the top of the mountain where we were and just stopped. I watched as what appeared to be a man surveyed our camp. I really could only see the outline of him. He stood there for what seemed like 30 minutes, but may have been 10 minutes. He then turned, sat down under a tree facing our camp, and he was sitting up in a way that I knew he was not trying to sleep. He just sat there staring at our camp. I had no idea what to do, so I decided to wait it out. I waited, just staring at the man while he stared at my camp. This went on until about 3:30 a.m. Then he stood up, took a moment to survey my camp a few minutes longer, and then went back down the trail he had come up on. I, to this day, have no idea what that was all about, but it freaked me out. I was paranoid that we were being followed for the rest of the trip. Ooh. Well, it looks like the campfires died down.
Yeah, I'll throw another log on it in a minute.
Oh. I see Playful Rain's enjoying the stories with these bug-eyed, freaky faces emojis she's putting on here. I hope everybody.
Love some camp stories.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go ahead and do another one. I didn't know. I thought Kelsey might want to move inside, but I'm going to go ahead and keep going then for a minute. All right. Here's one about a tragic climbing accident. My friends and I found a 22-year-old girl face down in the mud, both legs broken with compound fractures. She had no cell phone, no water, no food, and nothing to keep her warm. And her friend was dead. A little backstory, my two friends and I were hiking in a pretty popular spot in our area. It's a 150-foot waterfall that takes about 45 minutes of uphill hiking to get to it. We decided to go bouldering around the bottom of the waterfall. There are various little pools and boulders where the water runs off from the waterfall. This bouldering trail is not on the main trail,
Yeah, I'm gonna get the water hose.
and not many hikers ever veer off the main trail. When we found her, obviously we called 911 and gave her any supplies we had. Eventually, a helicopter showed up and they flew her to the nearest hospital. Turns out she was hiking with her friend the night before when they both fell off of the waterfall. Her friend must have gone to get help, but unfortunately died less than 100 yards from where we found the girl. So no one knew she was hurt or that she was even there. It's a miracle she was still alive, and mind-blowing to think that she had gone through what she had gone through when we found her 20 hours later. Before we found the hiker, we were climbing rocks in the area and taking pictures. We didn't even know the poor girl was in the background of these photos. All right.
It's Kevin, the haunted cane, telling stories from the dark side. I was just showing my lights off in the backyard. You know, the solar light. Looks like Christmas time, don't it?
Yeah, it does.
And then I've got all my driveway lights because the drive is kind of curved. And I originally did this because it's hard to see at night, the shape of the drive. See how it curves?
Yeah.
And so, and I like the way it looks. And they're solar lights.
Yeah, we've got some of those out here on our sidewalk out back.
So I kind of went crazy with them. But I like them. What can I say?
Yeah.
Yep, see? See, there's the front of the house right there. See?
Yeah.
All the way. I'm lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yes, you are.
All right. I'm going to.
Maple Rain says, I love the lights on the fence, Kelsey.
That wasn't a fence. That's the ramp going up to my deck.
The ramp. Okay.
Yeah, I got a huge, huge deck on the back. So, anyway. Go back to the back. I'm gonna sign off here in just a minute so I can go inside. But
Okay.
I gotta do safe and get my garden hose and turn that fire off real good. Even though it's in a fire pit, I don't want to leave anything smoldering out there.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
So, see my lights? Look, it's Christmas time.
Christmas.
All
Before we
right,
get to Christmas, we got to have Halloween first now.
well, I call this is Halloween. I had a big Halloween party out here one year on deck,
Oh.
and then I had my photo booth set up so everybody got to take pictures of themselves and their costumes and whatnot.
Oh, that's
So,
neat.
yeah. All right, I'm going to sign off. I'll join you back in just a minute. Let me get this
Okay.
fire put out good. Okay?
All righty then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. So I'll go ahead and share another story while we're waiting on him to get back on the inside there. This one is called Evil in the Woods. The weirdest, creepiest stuff I've ever found in the woods happened when I was a teenager. I'd only been driving a few years and had an old 71 Chevrolet Impala. It was a road boat and a gas guzzler for sure, but I loved to get out at night and drive around by the moonlight. There was an abandoned subdivision tract I had found during my ramblings, and I decided to go back one night and check it out. There were no houses, only what seemed like miles of paved road that went far back into the hills. The original developer had gone bankrupt, which was why it was left in the state it was in. All the building lots since had overgrown with brush and sapling pines. On this particular night, I had found the furthest extreme of the paved road blocked by a fallen tree. Feeling somewhat adventurous, I got out of my car with a flashlight to see if the tree could be moved. However, it was a beast of an old rotten oak and must have weighed close to a ton. There was no way I could move it by myself. Deciding that I wasn't finished exploring for the night, I decided to lock my car and go ahead on foot. I figured since the road was blocked, I was safe, as there would be no one else in the area. After about a half mile, the pavement stopped and continued on as a gravel road leading up a steep hill. I sallied forth, undaunted, happily stomping along in the gravel while enjoying the noise it made as it crunched beneath my boots. At the top of the hill, the gravel road ended as well, and now the road became nothing more than a rutted path through the high weeds and briars with huge trees flanking either side. I was still feeling adventurous and decided to press on, determined to see how far I could go and where I would eventually end up. About a half mile along the footpath, it curved sharply to the right. At the corner where it curved, I was playing my flashlight over the woods when the beam suddenly struck something out of the ordinary. On the slope of a short, steep bank, someone had fashioned a crude arrow shape out of some logs and branches of varying size. It looked too perfect to be random, so I was sure it was some kind of trail marker. I debated for a couple of minutes, then decided to abandon the path and see where the primitive trail maker led. At the crest of the bank where the arrow pointed, I found another narrow but well-worn path which led deeper into the woods. I forged ahead, enjoying the adventure and solace that comes with being out in nature. The path twisted and turned a bit, but was leading uphill to the top of a ridge. When I arrived at the top after a good half hour of hiking, I thought I would perhaps be met with a vista overlooking the city or the nearby lake. Instead, what I found made my blood run cold. Where the ground leveled out in a fairly large clearing was a gigantic pentagram made from carefully arranged logs. I mean, this thing was huge. There were other logs set up outside the circle of the pentagram, which reminded me of altars. There were also upside-down crosses planted at various spots. By now, I was actually sweating and shaking, jumping at every sound I heard, and playing my flashlight all over the trees, trying to catch sight of anyone who might be hiding. I caught a glimpse of something in the middle of the large pentagram and shined my light on it for a better look. It turned out to be the remains of some large bird, perhaps even a duck or a goose, which had been burned. I realized that whoever had done all this was serious about it. It was too intricate for just some metalhead kids messing about out in the woods. This was some sort of satanic type cult or group or whatever, which meant to perform blood sacrifices. I decided it was high time I got out of there, and I started moving as fast as I dared back through the woods. After what seemed like hours, I finally arrived back at my car. Written in mud across my windshield was a single word: beware. I grabbed an old t-shirt out of the back seat and scrubbed it off as best as I could, and then jumped in, silently praying my car would start. Thankfully, it did, and I'm sure I broke the speed limit all the way home. I've never shared my experience with anyone, and I never went exploring anywhere near the derelict subdivision or surrounding woods ever again. It still frightens me to this day to even think about what might have happened if I had shown up on the wrong night or at the wrong time and happened across these people and their evil practices in the woods. I still have a sense of adventure, but learned some very valuable lessons that night. Never go exploring alone. Always let someone at home know where you're going, and realize that there are some things that are better left alone. People who do things in secret and hidden out of sight do so for a reason. As the crudely written message on my car windshield stated, beware. That's a good story right there. All righty. So let's get to another story while we're waiting on old Kelsey to join us. This one's about another campsite in Canada. So here we go. I was once canoeing the boundary waters between Minnesota and Canada. These are not your normal backyard ponds. The boundary waters are thousands of enormous lakes interconnected with each other like mini Great Lakes. We had been canoeing and camping along the lakes for about a week at this point. We did not really have an itinerary, just planned to boat and camp and fish and live off the land for 2 weeks. We had a GPS and a satellite phone to call a helicopter for pickup whenever we were done. Anyway, about a week in, we were set to canoe a few hours to the next lake. An hour or so in, we were in the center of an extremely long and narrow lake. Unfortunately, a storm started to blow in, and the waves on the lake swelled to more than 2 feet. Too much for our dinky canoes. We pulled off to a random clearing on the shore and set up camp in a rush to avoid being totally thrashed by a rainstorm. We just set up camp and hunkered down for the night. By the next morning, it had cleared up. We started walking up the coast of the lake about 200 feet from our camp looking for a good fishing spot. What we actually found was another campsite. However, it was absolutely wrecked. Trash strewn everywhere, tent collapsed and torn, clothes on the ground. At first, we were just like disgusted, like what jerks did this, or who left their crap out to be bear food. The more we looked around, though, the weirder things seemed. For one, their garbage was still hoisted into a tree to keep it safe from bears, but the whole bag was ripped open despite being 30 feet in the air. Second, literally everything except the canoes were still at the campsite. Clothes, packs, food, rope, pans, like a serious set of hiking equipment, enough for 2 or 3 people. Half of it was trashed and torn open, mostly the packs, tent, and clothes. The other half was totally untouched but thrown on the ground. Like somebody just went, nope, and got the hell out of there in nothing but their long johns, ditching hundreds of dollars of gear in the process. We waited a couple of hours and eventually called it back to our helicopter crew, but they had not been aware of anybody else or gotten any distress calls. We eventually just left everything and moved camp. Everybody was pretty upset by it, and a day or two later, we ended the whole trip early because it seemed like nobody wanted to be out anymore. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. My first thought was bear attack, but there was food left uneaten, and I've seen bear attacks on camps before, but nothing like this. Bears rip open packs and go after food and are generally pretty easy to scare away. What still sticks with me is why all their clothes and packs were still there, with half being totally destroyed and half being untouched. I still don't get it. I've done a lot of other camping and hiking, rafting, and biking all around the country, and I've never had any other weird experiences like that. All right. Well, I still don't see Kelsey back, so I'm going to keep going with the stories. He's probably putting out the campfire. All righty. Get my throat a little moist there. All right. This happened to me back in the 1980s when I was in my 20s. On occasion, I would go car camping with my yellow tiger cat, Oberon. He had an overbite, drooled, had a monster purr, and was awesome in every way. He loved riding in my car. My solo camping was stupid, and I cannot recommend it, but I needed the aloneness and I needed the bravery. I would drive up roads, some national forests, some disused logging roads. I would not go too far. Just find a spot that appealed to me, pull off the road as far as I could, set up a small camp, and stay for a night or two, just reading or bird watching, painting, being with my cat, just spending time being me. One day I went up a road and found a pretty meadow with a small stream curving around through trees. It looked like the perfect place. The cat and I walked around a bit, checking it out. At the side of the meadow near the road was a large, flat, round rock, a perfect table. I always packed good food, and I liked a bit of elegance, so I set out a placemat, cloth, napkin, an unopened bottle of dark beer, my sandwich still wrapped in foil, on my plate, cookies, and a bowl of kibble for Oberon. He had wandered a bit, and I went to get him. We went into the trees and wandered around for a bit. It was a very lovely day, warm and sunny with a light breeze. The whole area was beautiful. We were not out of sight of my car and the rock for very long, maybe 15 minutes. I picked up the cat and walked back, looking forward to lunch. When we got to the rock, it was gone. Eaten. The foil was crumpled into a ball. The beer was empty, with the opener next to the bottle. Cookies gone, sandwich gone, napkin folded loosely, and the knife laid across the plate. It was an oh crap feeling. I ran for the car, tossed Oberon in, started the car, turned around, headed back down the hill. Then I thought, what if whoever ate my food was hiding in my back seat? I stopped with my heart pounding and turned and checked out the back seat, but all was okay. So I headed back to town and my friends. They were understandably freaked out by my story. I still camped out after that, but it took a while for my courage to return. Well, crap, they ate his lunch. How about that? Oh, let's see here. Here's one about being lost at night. Per a friend from college, she was in middle school or so when she went on some hiking trip through the woods with a club she was part of. It had started to get dark, so the older group leaders decided to lead everybody back. However, it quickly became apparent that they did not quite know where they were. It was getting darker and darker, and they still were not able to figure out where they were. Eventually, they stumbled across a small cabin. Without many other options, the group leaders decided to ask whoever is in it if the group can stay the night. They approached the door and knocked, but there was no answer. They knocked a couple more times and still no response. They tried the handle and found that the cabin was unlocked. As they entered, they were pretty freaked out by what they saw. Along the wall were several pairs of shoes. Scattered along another wall were a few bed frames. But the most startling thing was that the walls were just covered in chicken scratch writing. Everybody was freaked out, but it was too dark at this point to risk wandering into the woods blindly again. The group hunkered down on the floor. They didn't really get much sleep that night, but when daylight broke, they got the hell out of there. Alrighty, here's one about a makeout session gone wrong. This has got to be interesting. So let me read this one. Me and my ex-girlfriend decided to have a date night since we both had the day off work. So we did the usual dinner and a movie thing, and afterwards we decided we'd go for a midnight drive. So we drive about an hour and a half out of town, going nowhere particular. We just knew that we were going to get it on under the stars. After scoping out a random dirt road, I took my truck down it and parked in an open area off to the side next to the forest. The entire area was surrounded by forest. After about 10 minutes of kissing, we decided to get down to business. So we get in the back seat and start tearing each other's clothes off. About 5 minutes in, headlights heading towards where we were, but not directly at us. So we're both rushing in an attempt to get our clothes back on, thinking for some reason it might be the cops, which makes absolutely no sense now, but that's what we thought. My pants are nowhere to be found, and neither is her shirt. Now keep in mind, the closest house to the road we were on is probably 30 minutes away. We kept fumbling, looking for our clothing, and eventually found it and struggled to get them back on. The truck keeps getting closer and closer, but like I said, not directly at us. Until we finally realize it's not somebody coming to yell at us to get off their property or the cops. In fact, they can't even tell we are there because my truck is black and I'm parked almost into the thick forest area. Finally, an old beat-up F-150 parks his truck about 50 feet away from us. He leaves his truck running and gets out. He walks to his truck bed, grabs his shovel, and just starts digging into the ground. He did this for a good 30 to 40 minutes while we just sat there in silence, afraid to move or speak on the off chance he might hear us. He stops digging and lifts something out of the ground. It was a decent-sized object, but it was too dark to see exactly what it was. He picks it up, places it in his truck bed, goes back for the shovel, and places that in the truck bed as well, and drives off into the night. Me and my girlfriend decided it would be best to wait another 20 minutes before we even started our truck. To this day, I have no idea what it could have been, but I really hope it was, at worst, drugs. I thought I heard Kelsey coming on. I thought I heard his phone ringing in the background, but he's not back quite yet. I see Playful Rain commented on that other story about the pentagram, or the cabin, I think it was, with a scratching on it. Blair Witch stuff. Ooh. Yeah, that's another good camping story right there, the Blair Witch Project. All right, let's see what this next story is. This one is called The Fur Coat. We have a family cabin in the middle of nowhere on a small lake with 2 other cabins, surrounded by forested area and flatlands. About 2 miles away from the cabin and across the dirt road is a wildlife reserve. As kids, we walk through there all the time. Have the opposite of helicopter parents. After about 30 minutes walking straight into these woods, there was a collection of abandoned houses that looked like an old settlement. We went exploring and found that the people who used to live there had just up and left. In each house, there were still dishes on the tables, clothing in the closets, cars parked in the clearings, all the strappings for horses in the barns. In one house, the floor had caved in and there were about 40 pairs of women's shoes scattered around the hole in the middle. No bones, though, animal or human. Nothing. We decided to stay away from the second floors of the houses after we saw that. We figured they'd be structurally unsound. A skeletal tree house in the middle of the clearing. After we told my parents, my dad wanted to come and look too. In one of the houses, we found a bedroom fully intact. The sheets were still on the beds. The pillow still had the indentation of a head on it. But everything was covered in a thick layer of dirt, and the dust on the floors only had our footprints in it. At the foot of the bed was this stunning, enormous gray fur coat. There were a few moth holes chewed in it, and it was as dirty as everything else, but when we inspected it, we knew it was real fur, likely wolf or silver fox. It was gorgeous. Dad decided he was going to bring it back and clean it up and see if he could have it remade for my mom. As we were leaving, I got a chill on the back of my neck, and about 60 yards from the house, turned around and saw an old woman glaring at us from the window of the second floor. She had her hair in a loose bun and was wearing a blue shawl on her shoulders over a cream-colored blouse. I immediately felt super guilty. I grabbed my dad, who was about 10 yards ahead of me, and told him we had better put the coat back because the woman was still living there and we had probably scared her and she looked pissed. We turned back around and I pointed to the window I saw her glaring at us from, but no one was there. I said she must have gone downstairs. And as we approached the house, still carrying the stupid coat, one of the windows in another house suddenly slammed shut. I ran as fast as I could into the woods. Dad, being dad, stayed behind and started yelling for the lady to come out, that he was sorry, etc. He went upstairs, but no one was there, dust on the floor undisturbed. Then he smartened up and dropped the coat in a big hurry, and we beat it back to the road as fast as we could. About 5 years later, the government demolished the whole area. Oh, I wonder, was that a real person or a ghost? Oh, there's Kelsey. Oh, he's muted. Ah. Oh, he muted himself. Okay.
Muted.
Ah, there you are.
We gotta get you over sometime in the backyard with the fire pit and bring your bourbon and your cigar. And you
Ready for tobacco?
But I enjoyed that. First time I've used that fire pit. So
Yeah.
it took me a while to get back in because I wanted to make sure I got it totally out. Even though it's contained, you just can't be too safe. That's all.
Yeah, can't be too. Only you can prevent forest fires.
Only me can prevent my fire in my house. Oh Lord! So it is 8:44. Well, Kevin has been good. I played the drums. I'm sorry I drove people crazy with my drumming. I like the drumming. I used to go to drumming circles all the time. And the group I used to participate with, they kind of split up because some people died and moved off and whatnot. So I started my own drumming group here. I got 3 drums in my living room.
Ooh.
Right in front of my fireplace. You hadn't seen them there? You didn't pay attention.
I might have seen. Yeah, I think I did see it.
But I enjoyed that. So hope it added to the ambience.
Yeah. At that powwow when they did it, they had one big huge drum and everybody sat around that same drum.
Oh yeah, Big Mama. we had one called Big Mama.
Big Mama.
Yeah, Big Mama. And we'd all sit around. We didn't use our hands. We had some drumming sticks that had big things on them. Yeah.
Ah.
But I enjoy that. I like the drums. I used to have a drum kit, regular drum kit that I played. I took drumming in high school for the marching band.
Yeah.
So I've been pounding on stuff for a long time. That's why I'm bald head, because I was going. Nothing else to pound on, so I'll use this. Okay.
I use my stomach.
So I really appreciate you hanging in there and doing that, so I can enjoy the campfire, the fire pit, and I was hoping the drumming would add to the ambience a little bit. I don't know if it did or not.
It did, yeah. Playful Rain liked it.
Playful Rain is playing in the rain. So our guy from Puerto Rico, Costa Rica hadn't shown up tonight.
Oh, I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
No.
Caitlin showed up.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got sinus issues from sitting in the smoke, I guess. So anyway, I've got to be in Huntsville at Montana Mountain. Burnt on the mountain, a big mansion I'm doing a wedding at. I gotta be there for a rehearsal at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
So I'll be getting up and getting cleaned up and taking off. Then I've got a meeting in Huntsville later in the day. And then, of course, got the wedding there on Thursday.
Uh-huh.
And then on the 27th and 28th, I'm going to be in Starkville, Mississippi, Mississippi State. So I've done weddings there before. I don't know what's wrong with these people paying me to travel all over the place to marry them. That's something strange. Why would you pay me to go marry you?
I don't know. Why would they do that? Ain't they got nobody near home?
That's what I don't know. It's like, because I'm not, it's not like I live in their backyard,
Yeah.
Last weekend, I went to, you ever heard of Hope's Bluff?
Hope's Bluff. That sounds familiar.
About 30 minutes kind of northeast of Gadsden.
Oh, yeah,
A little hole in the wall town.
I heard of that.
So that couple, he was from California, and the groom, and she was from Knoxville. And of course, they paid me to come up there and marry them. And then tomorrow I'll be in Huntsville. Um, Next month I'll be pretty close to home most of the month, except I forget what date it is, the 12th or something. I'll be in Joppa. You ever heard of Joppa,
Yeah.
Alabama? Little teeny weeny
Teeny.
town,
Teeny.
itty bitty town, and they've got a themed wedding. It's a superhero wedding.
Ah.
A lot of weddings coming up as usual. I'm booking into 2023 now. So
Wow.
I never asked for this career. It found me. I didn't find it.
Wow.
So
Wow.
anyway,
Wow.
so what? So did everybody enjoy the freaking campfire stories?
Yeah, I know Playful Rain said definitely enjoying. She commented that earlier.
Oh, she liked my solar lights.
Yeah, she liked your fence and lights.
I'm not through with the backyard because it's going to be Christmas time, Halloween time all year, I guess.
Oh, Halloween, Halloween.
Where'd you get that?
I got it from Trick or Treat Studios.
Trick or treat.
This is
You
one of
have
the-
room in your house. You're going to have to buy a bigger mansion now, aren't you?
I guess so. This is one of the masks from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Either that or your dad's going to have to find another place to live.
Yeah.
Tell him to buy a trailer and park it out back.
Oh, me. We got about 10 minutes or less.
Well, you got time for another story?
Another story.
Well, let me see. I had some up on my computer, but I don't know what you told because I was busy playing drums for the most part. Where did you get your stories from?
Mine was on Thought Catalogs, 31 True Stories of Deeply Disturbing. What was that called? Deeply Disturbing Camping and Hiking Trips Gone Terrifyingly Wrong.
Okay. No, I do understand what it is you're saying. Excuse me. Go ahead. You got one? I thought I had some up here. Okay.
I got.
These are very short. I got 14
Okay.
short stories.
Yeah.
You want me to tell me if you've heard any of these, okay?
Okay.
They're very short, but this happened to me when I was little. I was camping with my older brother and my mom. I was about 7 or 8, and I went to bed around 10 in a sleeping bag inside my tent with both my mom and brother. Sometime during the night, I don't know when, I woke up somewhere in the middle of the woods, still in my sleeping bag. Had no idea where I was or where my tent was.
Yeah, I read that one earlier.
You read that one?
Yeah.
Okay. You probably read all these. Right? There's a picture of my fire I just had. Every time I've gone camping with my dad, he set the place on fire.
Well, that sounds different. So go ahead and read it.
Every time. He says he's not at his best until his morning coffee. The first time he was dumping water on the grass fire, trying to put it out. It quickly got out of hand. Luckily, it started raining. Unfortunately, we brought our standard poodle, and he didn't like thunder, so he destroyed the tent trying to get in. So we had a collapsed tent that smelled like a mix of lawnmower and wet dog for the rest of the trip. I was around 4 years old at the time, this particular camping trip. The day was winding to a close, and my dad and a few of his friends built a campfire. Being a little kid, I wanted to make s'mores. So someone gave me a stick with a marshmallow on it without really knowing that I had never roasted a marshmallow before. I stuck the thing right into the flames, and as you can imagine, it was very quickly engulfed in a ball of flame. Being 4, I had no idea how to put it out. So my first reaction was to wildly start waving the stick back and forth, up and down. Of course, almost immediately, before anyone could react, this flaming marshmallow flew off the stick, smacked me right in the center of my forehead, essentially covering my entire face in molten goo.
that is rapidly streaming down towards my eyes. I essentially had to be dumped in this cooler head first by all these adults to put the marshmallow out. Well, those are interesting stories, but they're not really horror stories.
I know burning marshmallow on your face can be kind of horrifying.
I like the the escaped convict and that kind of stuff. About 10 years ago, my wife and I were on a road trip around Nova Scotia, camping in public and private campgrounds along the way. One night, we were miles away from any real campground, so we asked at a restaurant if there was anywhere we could just camp for free for the night. We were told about a public park off a cliff overlooking the ocean near Antigonish. We drove up there, and we were the only ones besides an older couple in a fifth wheel. There was an old lighthouse right there near the parking lot, and we set up our tent on the grass near our car at the base of the lighthouse. Pretty bad idea, as all night long the light would blink on and off for about 2 seconds, then off for 3, over and over all night. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, we started to hear very strange noises coming from the woods that surrounded the clearing on all sides. And I don't know why this pop-up came up. Jesus freaking. Heck. Okay, I can't get the rest of the story. Covered it up, and I don't know how to get rid of this. Jeez. Okay, I'm through. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It shut me down. Bam.
Well, I got a good one up here about a crazed. You said you like the ones with the crazy people, the escape convict, and all that.
Are you crazy?
I got one here that sounds real crazy.
Is Paper Rain still with us? She gone.
Oh, I don't know. There's people watching. I don't know if one of them was heard.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. I have a bunch of woods behind my house, and when I was younger, my friend and I would go camping in them. We were around 14 years old. This time we went farther than we usually did one day and ended up coming out on a neighbor's property. So we just went back a little ways and started getting our stuff set up for camping. My friend leaves to go use the bathroom, and then I hear him screaming and running back toward me. He's not making much sense, just babbling, blubbering about something to do with Barbies and cat heads. So I sort of force him to show me what he's talking about. So I follow him, and we come out in a clearing next to the creek, and there's hundreds of Barbie dolls strung up in the trees about 8 feet off the ground, dead cat heads on them. In other words, the Barbies' heads have been yanked off and replaced with cats' heads. Not cat skulls either, full cats' heads. I want to say the dolls' bodies were dipped in red paint. I know it wasn't blood because blood does not stick and stay that thick.
Oh, yeah, it does.
For sure what it really was. I started backing up toward our camping area, and my friend starts screaming again. No. Oh. He's off to my side and had just discovered the huge pile of cat remains with a bunch of Barbie doll heads thrown in with them. We both threw up, and then we packed our stuff and went back home. But it does not end there.
Oh, gosh.
That neighbor whose field we stumbled into, they were friends with my mom, and they started telling about a bunch of their barn cats going missing. But they had not thought of anything of it since we have a lot of coyotes. Still, at that point, I had not told my mom about our discovery in the woods because I figured she'd never let me leave the yard. Then 2 of their goats went missing, and coyotes would not have opened the gate and shut it back after slaughtering their goats.
No, we had goat sacrifices. What do you think, man?
And there'd be some kind of leftovers.
No, we got rid of it all.
The neighbor's husband heard someone screwing around in their yard one night, and he saw some guy roaming around in their cow pasture.
Yep.
They sort of connected the pieces and realized someone was stealing their animals, so the husband went into 24/7 armed security mode. A week or so later, he sees the same guy go in his barn. So he calls the cops. It turns out it's some 16-year-old kid that lived on the other side of his property who had just moved in. The kid admits to stealing his cats, goats, and trying to take a cow. The kid lives in a mobile home, nowhere to keep all these animals he's been stealing. The kid's dad ends up telling the cops that he knew his son was taking them and basically slaughtering them in the woods and doing weird stuff with the bodies. The Barbie dolls he'd stolen from his little sister.
Ah,
It wasn't until a year or so after my mom actually told me what had happened, which is when I gave in and told her about my friend and I basically stumbling onto that screwed up scenario. They got the kid for animal cruelty and a whole bunch of other stuff, and his family moved away not too long after, so I really don't know what happened with him later. Oh, still cutting off cats' heads. Whoa, what's that?
hey, like my hearse.
That's a hearse. Look at you with a hearse. Uh-oh, what's he carrying in that hearse? Oh.
All I can say is it better not be alive. In the funeral business, when they say, how's business? We say dead.
Looks like Playful Rain's still with us. She put in the cat heads up there. Sacrifice for sure.
Soon to be Jeffrey Dahmer.
Soon to be Jeffrey Dahmer. Sweet, she says.
Yeah.
That's probably about your hearse, though.
Come on, ride with me, baby. Actually, I like that vehicle. I like having a hearse in the driveway because all my next door neighbors, like 87-year-old lady. And I get up in the morning, she's out in her yard doing her flowers, and I say, "You want to ride?" She don't like me.
She don't like. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, we made it through another night.
We did.
So enough. What are we going to talk about next week?
I don't know. What can we talk about? How can we possibly top this with these camping horror tales and a
Well,
haunted doll to start? Which I'll have another haunted doll next week. So
we could do some of those missing 411 stories.
missing 411.
You know that David Helitis
Yeah.
does all those national park missing people.
Oh, National Park Mississippi.
Yeah.
Missing 411.
No, it's not my hearse. I wish it was, but off to a funeral home. So, what can I say? I really appreciate Kevin letting me enjoy my fire pit and playing the drum. Was it too loud?
No.
Good. Because I had the phone, I just set the phone on the ground. Playful Rain, we really appreciate your loyalty to our insanity. Yes. And look, Kevin, the last wedding I did up in Oaks Bluff, they all wore that cowboy hat.
That cat. I like this cowboy hat. I wear this to the powwows and.
So anyway, I got to get up early in the morning.
Okay.
And take off to Hunts Vegas.
All righty.
And do my wedding things and ruin another good relationship.
Start another divorce.
Good night, everyone.
Did you hear her?
Yeah, good night, Catherine.
All right. Take care, and we will talk soon.
Yes.
And folks, don't forget, June the 4th and 5th. And if you can't make it, we'll be doing a lot of live streaming from there. And you don't have to, you can order the books. Just order the books. We don't want to see you, really. We just want your money.
I like money. Lots and lots of money.
Good night, Playful Rain said good night, Catherine. She didn't say good night, Kelsey, or good night. What's his name? Kevin, that's what his name is. Kevin. I didn't recognize you with that hat on.
Yeah, still me under here.
All right. Well, so maybe come one night we'll just do the live stream by the fire pit all night.
Yeah.
And you'll have to bring us some. What do you drink? Rum, vodka. What do you drink?
I drank. Well, this is Arnold Palmer's tea and lemonade. So
No, but you drink some alcohol. Don't even
ah,
innocent bullshit.
aye.
You also dip skull.
I don't have skull.
What do you do? Chew tobacco?
I got some red man.
It's you and Kevin. All right. All right. We're gonna shut it down.
Okay.
Peace and love.
Yes.